Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the amazing Dan Cordillo. Dan, how you doing today, man?
Not too bad, my friend. How are you? It's been a
Dude,
while.
it has, and this has been a very long time coming. We were meant to connect a couple years ago, but life gets in the way. So let's talk a little bit about that. Give a little backstory on Dan. He's been watching horror movies for as long as he can remember. In school, he was the weird kid that watched scary movies all year long, which totally relatable. I totally get where you're coming from there. Um, After a lifelong, being a lifelong fan of horror movies, he decided to start a YouTube channel back in when the world went in lockdown in 2020 with Filthy Dan's film discussion. And, a little bit of a hiatus came. You had to take a little bit of a mental health break and kind of compose yourself and do what you had to do for yourself. And you've since
Yep.
rebranded the channel as the Department of Fear and trying to get back on track now. So, I don't want to get too deep into it, but, you decided horror is something I love. I want to start a channel without being too specific. What kind of made you want to do a rebrand and kind of do a start over?
Uh, Well, the rebrand came honestly with being away for like a year and a half, kind of off and on. I felt that I had sort of tarnished that name, and I felt like a rebrand will kind of symbolize like strength, coming back. And a lot of the channels I came up with, like Matt Facci, like he rebranded, Jason Knight rebranded. Just a lot of the guys I came up with rebranded. So it's like, it's time for me to do that. I've been the same old name since I started, so it just seemed like the healthy thing to do. And it is a little more broad of an idea too with the name. It's like
And sometimes we just need
Department of
a new,
Fear.
yeah, sometimes we just need a new coat of paint, you know. The
Exactly.
car can still look beautiful underneath the hood, man, but you just need a new coat of paint to put on there to make it sparkle the way that you want it to. So, whether it was Filthy Dan's film discussion or the Department of Fear, I'm really glad you're back because we were able to work together a couple years ago with the Lost River Drive-In and Ryan 1988, and that's where me and you met each other through two of the most amazing people I know. And we knew then we were going to work together, but you were kind of going through some things, and I'm glad we were finally able to make this happen. And the way you guys can check out the new rebranded channel is by subscribing to it. And I have those links down in the description, as well as Dan's social media links. That way you guys can follow him to stay up to date on all the things he's working on. So make sure you're clicking the links down in the description and joining that family as well. So the big thing here, Dan, if you're going to do a horror YouTube page, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now I would like to go
Yes.
back to the past, for fuck's sake, and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Dan, your first horror movie was
Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, also known as Halloween 6. Love it or hate it, it's a film that can't be ignored by horror fans. We all love to talk about it.
mm-hmm.
I was probably about 3 years old because I do know it was before the millennium, so it's safe to say 3 or 4. But I like to go with 3 because it just shows lifelong there.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember it was on one of those cassette tapes, when you could record like 3 movies on one tape.
Yeah.
I came across that and I saw this title on there. I was just starting to understand reading. But I saw Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, Psycho 3, and The Mouth of Madness.
What a
Now,
tape, man.
now the funny thing here, uh, I thought that was one title because you have the Disney clamshells. It's one movie per tape.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, oh, this is. I don't know how I figured out how to say that whole thing. Uh,
It's fucking amazing.
I watched that, and I would always watch that, and as soon as it was over, it's like, well, time to rewind it. It took like about. It wasn't until I was like 7 that I got around to Psycho 3, and still it took even longer to get to In the Mouth of Madness. But that's a whole other story for another time. But yeah, Halloween 6 is a movie that really it got under my skin as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of good ways. I mean, Halloween is obviously one of my favorite series if you can sort of see what's going on behind the display there. I mean, freaking four different copies of it on display. So
Right. Well,
but yeah, the Halloween series, you guys know if you have seen what I do, that's one of my things.
mhm. And like I said, Halloween 6, not my favorite movie in the world. I think everybody that knows me knows that. I'm not a huge fan of this movie, but what I am a big fan of is the fact that somebody made art. And I would never want people to be like, oh, I hate Halloween 6. I want people to like the film. Even if I'm not a fan of it, I would never want art to go unloved. That's one of the saddest things I could ever imagine happening. So the fact that you started with this film, it really, it is, there are a lot of great kills in this movie. There's an amazing massacre throughout the film. There's a lot of very scary things that happen throughout the Curse of Michael Myers. But what would you say the scene
Mm.
was that affected you the most?
Well, honestly, it was really at the beginning of the film, and I could really pinpoint a lot of the films, but I really would have to say it's the bathroom scene when they're at the bus depot, and last you see, Jamie is in one of the stalls,
Mhm.
and Michael starts to come around. The power goes out. He's slowly opening the stalls again. Where the horror trope? So I'm thinking, oh no, this girl is getting it right here, and just that whole thing. Like I didn't understand tension, but I certainly felt it at that
Right.
point, and it's one that still is pretty effective when I go back and rewatch it. And I mean, other notable mentions could be when Kara goes back to the house and she's got the fire poker and she knows Michael's upstairs. The lights are off there. I mean, there are a lot of scenes, but I'd have to say the bus depot to just because chronologically that is one of the earlier scenes of tension. So
Sure. And say what you want about the film, because I know there's a lot of people that, I don't like the recasting of Jamie Lloyd or how Jamie Lloyd died, the cult. There is a lot of negatives about the film, but there are a lot of positives, especially in your eyes, with it being the first horror movie you watched. You're not looking at it through the lens of Halloween as a franchise. You're looking at
right,
it as this is the movie I'm watching. This is the only film I know in this franchise. You don't know Danielle Harris. You don't know Jamie Lee
right.
Curtis. You're watching it strictly through the lens of Michael Myers on the loose with Tommy Doyle, all these things that are happening in this film. And we know you were very young when you had watched it for the first time, but was it just you just in there with the tape yourself?
I see. I feel like my parents might have been there watching it, and because it is like 25 plus years that I have to go back and think about that,
Mm-hmm.
it is a little tricky. But I feel like my parents were there watching it. I might have caught it on the ass end the first time, but I do know the first time I watched it from start to finish, I was on my own because I would just take tapes back to my room and get up on my tippy toes and put them in the VCR there
Yes,
because
man.
it's like the 90s. You could leave your kids unsupervised. What's the yeah,
And it's still, watching scary movies. If that's the worst thing our kids are doing, we need to be pretty damn happy with that. So
oh
we
yeah.
know which scene it was, Dan, that affected you the most. But what would you say your favorite scene from Halloween 6 is?
Yeah, the favorite scene, man, there really are quite a few of those. Like, I'm hard pressed to not say the surgical room scene, like the strobes. That whole thing was insane. Like, my favorite could change at the drop of a hat, but oof, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go with the barn scene, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably just give it to the chase across the street because that is the first time that I saw Michael in his, I'm after somebody, and you see Michael, you see the lightning, frantic on the door for Tiny to let her in. And I didn't realize that I was really watching a glorified callback at that point.
Right.
So I'd have to say that one right now. Like, if you asked me yesterday or tomorrow, I could probably give you a whole different answer on that one.
Right.
But it's one of those ones.
No,
It's
and
just one of those films where
and like you said, this is your first time seeing it, so you're not thinking about Halloween 1. You're not thinking about 78 and what's
right.
happening. How like you said, how this is a big Easter egg for the fans. This is a lot of fan service. To you, this is just a scary moment where this guy's chasing this girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, we know that Halloween 6 was the first horror movie that you watched, and it's obviously a very important movie to you. And as horror fans, we love the kills. But what would you say your favorite kill in Halloween 6 is?
Oh, now that could change depending on the cut. If we're looking at the theatrical cut, which is the most widely known, or at least it was for the last 20 years, it would easily be when John gets it. Yeah. that exploding head, that was absolutely horrifying. The foaming of the mouth, that just the whole nine on that was freaking crazy. If we're going producer's cut though, that kill just doesn't work well in that one. So for producer's cut, I might just have to go with Barry Sims on that one. Like just because he goes to the van, we actually know why he got into the wrong van. It didn't really make a lot of sense in the producer's cut, but Barry Sims was kind of a prick in the character. If you guys have seen the film, you know exactly. But I don't know. He was such a douche of a character, so to see him get his in that was a lot of fun.
Okay.
And of course, the way he badmouths Michael before he gets it, it's always rewarding.
Well, and like I said, this is a movie that a lot of people have. This is a movie I've never heard of someone say that's all right. People either love this movie or they hate this movie. So that's, I think, the main thing with this one being the ending of the Thorn trilogy. You kind of had to try to tie everything up the way that 5 ended, but with Halloween being a bigger franchise, it just ended the franchise. Is Halloween 6 your favorite in the franchise, or which, if not, which one is?
Man, it's one of my favorite sequels. It's probably around the 4th spot. Really, at the end of the day, I think the first one, maybe the third one, is my favorite. Like, I don't know, I like when Halloween decides to go and do something crazy. So it could easily be Halloween 3, but honestly, it might be the first one just because it works not just as a horror film, but it's a very well-made film. And I mean, John Carpenter is like my favorite filmmaker now, so I'd feel like a criminal if I said anything but Halloween 1.
Well, and that's a movie that it goes down with a lot of people as their absolute favorite film of all time. That's favorite horror film or favorite film in the franchise. So I understand that. But, we talked about the Halloween franchise and what this franchise means to you. But now my friend, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Dan? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh. This is probably going to be one of the most generic answers that somebody could give. It'll probably be John Carpenter's The Thing. Again, just a moment ago, I said Carpenter's my favorite. But The Thing is just a little bit better than Halloween, I think, as a film and as a horror film, even, because you have that whole tension throughout the film. Like, as soon as it starts, it just kind of hooks you in with, okay, what's going on here? And, as the virus of the Thing starts to spread throughout the camp, we are starting to slowly become aware of what's going on there. And I do got to state that I didn't see this film when I was young. I didn't see it till like 3 years ago. So I saw it at like the most opportune time, when the world closed down, and it just felt like a more relevant film. Sure. And that's one thing that I think really makes it stand out as one of my favorites, is just because of how relatable it is with current society, where you don't know who you're able to trust and whatnot. And the practical effects, I mean,
the best.
If you don't like the practical effects in The Thing, I firmly believe that you are a thing.
Right. I'm gonna have to give your
you are assimilated.
Poke your blood with a warm needle and see what time it is.
Exactly. It's the thing is, try and keep it short on that. It really goes down to The Thing.
I think that The Thing is my favorite Carpenter film easily. I think that there's just something about that movie that is just super special, and it's so intriguing every time you watch it. And I could never poo-poo anybody for picking The Thing. You say it's a generic answer, that's because it's such a perfect answer. It's such a great movie, and one of the most underrated scores of all time, I feel, of any film. So I could totally give it up to The Thing, man. Well, Dan, I've had an amazing time with you talking about your first horror movie and your favorite horror movie and the Halloween franchise. But before I let you go, we always bounce back to the same question. We're going to go back to Halloween 6, and what we're going to do is rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All we're doing is ranking this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle, Dan, what would your ranking of Halloween 6 be?
Oof. That, that honestly, I'd have to go like a solid 8.5. Honestly,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna probably give it 8.5 for shit. I screwed up. You said 10, right? Out of 10?
5.
Out of 5. Jesus. So I'll start that over. 4.5. It would easily be a 4.5 skulls on that.
Well, because the thing is, if you
Uh,
hadn't watched Halloween 6, who knows if you'd be the guy that you are right now?
exactly.
You
Yeah,
know, you have that
it's
butterfly effect and how these movies affect us. So I'm a firm believer in our first horror movie, really, especially if you're in the horror genre, it's really a thing that steers you the rest of the way.
yeah.
So, man,
I'm
and I
on
did say it
that.
at the beginning, guys, but we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, I want to remind you, I got all of Dan's social media links as well as the YouTube link down in the description. So make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube. Make sure you're following him on social media to stay up to date with all the amazing things he has coming up for us in the future. Dan, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Uh,
All
Everybody
right.
else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. All our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.